Property tax auctions, sometimes called sales, are held throughout the United States to provide a method for the local government to collect past due property taxes that counties, cities, and other municipalities need to operate. Now, property tax auctions come in two basic forms: tax lien certificate sales or auctions, where the investor lends the government money owed on past due property tax, and tax deed auctions, where the investor buys the property from the government that has past due property tax owed on it. At one of my 3-day workshops, Bob Schumacher, a former student and now long-term investor at auctions, explains the difference between a tax lien sale and a tax deed sale, or you call them auctions, whichever you want. Okay, you'll find more information on my website at Ted.Thomas.com.
I'm talking about my first tax deed. I started doing this in 1999, but the principles are the same. And sometimes the laws will change from one state to another. For instance, I used to have a nice presentation about Oklahoma, and Ted used to do seminars there. And Oklahoma was a lien state, and you could pick up tax liens for really, really, really cheap and make some good money off of them. And then he changed and turned it into a deed state, But, the state legislatures, they can change the law anytime they want to. And so, you just roll with the punches. But a lot of the old examples are still perfectly valid because the laws are the same as they were, and principles still work. So I started right off the bat looking at land. I was less interested in houses. First of all, I didn't have a whole lot of spare cash when I started out. And so I quickly learned that the bidding is usually less intense on land than it is on houses. Everybody wants a tax deed on a pretty house. And so the houses were going for more money than I had, but people weren't spending putting as much attention into the land as they were on houses. So this is one, it was worth more than $10,000. I knew that because the owner of the property, the delinquent taxpayer, had paid $10,000 like 10 years prior to that, and land had gone up from there. Because I bought it for half of the price that the owner had paid 10 years prior to that. Think about that. And so for $4,900, I had a tax deed on 8 acres of land. And I thought for sure I was going to end up getting that one because it got to 11 and a half months. The year had almost run. The woman who owned it had moved to California, and then she had remarried, changed her name, moved again, and forgot to notify the county of all those changes. And so the tax bill was going to her previous address and her former name, and the forwarding from the post office had expired, and so she wasn't getting the tax bills anymore. She finally realized that she wasn't getting the tax bill. She called the county and said, "Hey, how much do I owe?" And so I ended up getting paid. But this is a very passive investment. All I had in it was my time to research it. Just driving around looking at properties, so maybe a day of driving around looking at properties, and then investing that $4,900 the morning of the tax sale, and then just sitting back and waiting for the time to pass. I made almost $1,000 off that investment. And you say, "Oh, no, $1,000, that's not going to get me very far." But you do this over and over and over again, and they start accumulating. There were 2 adjacent pieces of land, and so this is just the county tax map of the 9-acre parcel, and then this one was included too. It was a 1-acre parcel. Same owner. She hadn't paid her taxes. Went to the auction. I ended up buying both of them. And I paid $9,200. And something that happens on tax deed sales, generally not lien sales, but in tax deed sales, it usually takes several months for the property to go through the entire process of the people being notified first that they're being delinquent, that they're delinquent, to actually holding the sale. And in some cases, another year's taxes becomes due, but it does not get added to the opening bid, and that's something you've got to watch for. And that was the case here, and so there was another $331 that was due and payable. So I went ahead and paid it because I knew that if the people redeemed it, I was going to make 20% on that $331 too. So there's no point in me not paying it. I went ahead and paid it. So I had a little over $9,500 in this deal. And so get home, and about 3 weeks later, I get a certified letter in the mail from an attorney. That's usually really bad news, right? When the attorney sends you any kind of mail, any kind of notification. But this was good news because the attorney was representing the woman who had failed to pay her taxes, and he basically, behind all the legalese in that letter, he's just saying, hey, my client really messed up. What do we owe you? And what you'll find is if attorneys contact you, they always make you make the first move, just in case your math is wrong and you give them too low a number. Then they'll jump on it, they'll pounce on it and pay you that. So always do your math right because they're gonna ask you. Now if you give them too high a number, they'll let you know. But if you quote a number that's too low, yeah, they'll gladly pay you. So he says, please call me. Well, I had no reason not to call him. Remember, this is a 20% penalty. If I waited another 11 months, I was still only going to get exactly the same amount. I had no incentive to wait whatsoever. So I quickly called him, arranged to have a closing in his office the next week. Walk out of his office, he did all the work, and his client paid for all of it. I didn't have to pay anything. I just walk out of that office with a check for $11,437.78. So in 31 days, I made a profit of more than $1,900. So that's the power of that 20% penalty rather than an interest rate. And Ted really loved that example. And like I said, he used it. I think he still uses it from time to time. But that really taught me, that really showed me, hey, this stuff works. This stuff really works. It's a whole lot better than Cabbage Patch Dolls, that's for sure.